Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this Zoom webinar. Buongiorno a tutte e tutti. My name is Anna Maria Di Giorgio. I'm the director of the Italian Cultural Institute in San Francisco, and I'm particularly glad to be here today and have the privilege to open this Zoom webinar entitled Raphael in the Vatican, a special year for the Vatican museums, to celebrate this important 500th anniversary with a special guest from Italy, Professoressa Barbara Jatta, Director of the Vatican Museums. Thank you so much.
Good evening to everybody.
Thank you so much, Professoressa Jatta, for being with us today. As all of you know, on April 6th, 1520, Raffaello Sanzio, one of the greatest geniuses of the Renaissance, died in Rome. On the anniversary of his death, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, together with the network of Italian cultural institutes and diplomatic offices in the world, has been celebrating the great maestro through numerous multimedia initiatives. When the epidemic struck, together with my colleagues, we have been looking for a way to put our resources together in a common effort to offer our public the best cultural program possible, despite these difficult times. Because la cultura non si ferma, culture never stops. It's very important for me to underline that this conference series has been presented jointly by the IIC of North America, so please let me thank my colleagues. Luca De Vito, IIC Chicago, Valeria Rumori, IIC Los Angeles, Francesco Darelli, IIC Montreal, Paolo Barlera, IIC New York, Alessandro Ruggera, IIC Toronto, Emanuele Amendola, IIC Washington, and a thank to our embassy in Washington, D.C. for constantly supporting the activities of the IACs. Last but not least, my special thank goes to our Consul General in San Francisco, Lorenzo Ortona, that is online with us today and would like to say a few words. Lorenzo, buongiorno, please.
Buongiorno Anna Maria, buongiorno a tutti, and thank you for this opportunity. Thank you to our guests, in particular to Barbara Jatta. We are so honored to have you here with us today in the Bay Area. And of course, to Professor Emanuele Lugli from Stanford, who will be interviewing her today for his ongoing support to all the activities of the Italian Consulate and Italian Cultural Institute here in San Francisco. If there's one thing that this terrible period brought about, this pandemic, is definitely that we can now work together, as Anna Maria just mentioned, with all the other cultural institutes in the United States under the coordination of the Italian Embassy in Washington, D.C., to bring to our public some wonderful, wonderful guests that can bring us even closer to the Italian culture in these difficult times. And in particular, for a consulate as large as the Italian consulate in San Francisco, we're able to reach many friends of the Italian community that are in faraway places like Hawaii or Alaska or other places that belong to the jurisdiction of this consulate. As I mentioned today, we have the honor of having Barbara Jatta with us. She's the director of the Vatican Museums. As many of you know, there is a reason why it's a plural. It's because it's not just one museum. The Vatican has an extraordinary collection of Egyptian, Etruscan, Greek, Roman, Christian, Renaissance art that is just extraordinary, and it needs the plural. And of course, from the stanza di Michelangelo that we all know and love here in America, to Raphael, who we are commemorating and celebrating this year, 2020, on his 500th anniversary of his death. I cannot wait to have Barbara discuss Raphael's Vatican works and the challenges of celebrating such an important anniversary that we were all waiting for so long during a world pandemic. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you for being with us once again today. Grazie Anna Maria per aver organizzato tutto. Buon ascolto.
Grazie Lorenzo. So as I was saying, the year 2020 has marked the celebration of the 500th anniversary of the death of the universally acclaimed Master of Art Raffaello Sanzio da Urbino. It has been a special year for the Vatican Museums because it is here that Raphael's most important series of frescoes are preserved. The museums also host 3 altarpieces fundamental to an understanding of Raphael's different artistic phases and the progression of his career in Rome around 1508 until his premature and sudden death in 1520. So now Professor Jatta will discuss Raphael's Vatican works and the challenges of celebrating this important anniversary during a world pandemic. This event is moderated by Professor Emanuele Lugli, that I thank once again for his availability. Emanuele Lugli is a professor at Stanford University, and he teaches and writes about late medieval and early modern art, with a particular emphasis in Italian painting, trade, urban culture, and history of fashion. So before giving him the word, I would also like to remind you that the next Zoom webinar will be hosted by the IIC Chicago on December 11 in cooperation with the Center for Renaissance Studies Newberry Library with PhD Shared Rice. The title will be Le donne nell'arte di Raffaello, Women in Raffaello's Art. So please follow our website, our YouTube channel, social network, subscribe to our newsletter to keep up to date. And a quick note, at the end of the conference, Professoressa Jatta will reply to the first 5 questions we receive. You can write the question in Italian or English in the Q&A. And now, with no further ado, I give the word to Professor Lugli, and I thank Professoressa Jatta for granting us the honor to be here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna Maria. Thank you to Lorenzo, the consul. Thank you to the Italian Cultural Center in San Francisco for organizing this event and for inviting me. It is my great pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Barbara Jatta. And Dr. Jatta received a degree from La Sapienza University of Rome. She's a specialist in the history of graphic arts, and she has worked in numerous institutions in the United Kingdom, in Portugal, and the United States before returning to Rome. For a decade, starting in 1996, she directed the Cabinet of Prints at the Vatican Apostolic Library, where she also contributed to organizing exhibitions, overseeing publications, and managing acquisitions. In January 2017, Pope Francis appointed her the director of the Vatican Museums, which, as we just heard, is a cluster of collections that altogether count on more than 70,000 artworks, including the famous Sistine Chapel. The Vatican Museums are a cultural powerhouse. The history of its core collection dates back to the 16th century, which makes it a half a millennium-year-old museums. It's visited by millions of people every year. It is among the top 3 most visited museums in the world, together with the Louvre, in whose scientific committee Dr. Jatta also sits, and the National Museum of China in Beijing. Just to put things in perspective, the Vatican Museums attract more visitors than the Metropolitan Museums in New York. So, given the scale and the complexity of the operations of the Vatican Museums, we are particularly grateful that Dr. Jatta has managed to carve some time out of her extremely busy schedule to speak to us about the initiatives that the Vatican Museums has put together to celebrate the great Renaissance master Raphael in the 500th anniversary of his death. As we've just been reminded, he died in 1520 when he was in his 30s. I'm particularly excited to hear her speaking because the Vatican Museums, which own some of Raphael's most spectacular works, have been at the forefront of the celebrations. And in an art historical sense, celebration means research, spending time and dedicating resources to the restorations of works, the reassembling of dismembered altarpieces, and to the organization of exhibitions and publications that contribute to making us understand Raphael's oeuvre in fresh, new ways. Dr. Jatta, thank you again so much for joining us today.
Thank you. An extraordinary celebration, 500 years, a middle of a millennium, which saw Raphael Sanzio Borbino, the protagonist of beauty, of harmony, taste and creative inspiration of generations of painters, sculptors, decorators, architects, and artists in a wide sense. But to know well Raffaello Sanzio da Urbino, you must come to the Vatican museums. You must come to the Vatican, because the Vatican preserves probably the most extraordinary part of his life and his works. You immediately understand, arriving to the Vatican museums, on the gate of the Vatican Museum, on the entrance door, opening in the 1930s, between the coat of arms of Pius XI, the Pope that opened the museums to the public, you have two figures, Raphael and Michelangelo. Because you immediately understand that these two artists are the real icons of our collections. But even when you take your ticket in the Vatican Museum, you immediately recognize that it's Raphael that bears visitors. So you have the very, very well-known images of Plato and Aristotle of the School of Athens in the Stanze di Raffaello, the icon of the ticketed entrance. Raphael stayed in Rome for 12 years, from 1508 to 1520. He served and he was involved in a very, very special time of the papal court. The court of Julius II della Rovere, Giuliano della Rovere, Julius II, and then Giovanni de' Medici, Leo X, the son of Lorenzo il Magnifico. In this time, the papal court can be considered probably the most sophisticated time of Renaissance time, of papal court in Renaissance time and in other times. And in these times, many, many issues were undertaken, from the destruction of the ancient basilica, the Constantine Basilica of St. Peter's, but also the Raphael stanza, of course, were made, but also the Sistine Chapel were depicted during this time, and the complex of Belvedere, the incredible, huge complex of Belvedere by Bramante that was served in this time. But at the meantime, during the Julius II time, even the first collection, Professor Lugli was mentioning that Vatican museums have 500 years of life, of history. And in fact, the discovery of Lacan in 1506 in a vine garden in Colleoppio in central Rome, and immediately the sending of Michelangelo and Sangallo by Julius II to see, and the acquisition by Julius II in few days, and the sculpture brought it in Belvedere, signed really the starting of the Vatican museums. But Raphael, during his Roman time, worked so much for Julius II and Leo X. In this special really moment, the Segnatura room between 1508 to 1518, the Eliodoro room a little later, 12 to 14, the Incendio room, 1514, 1517, the Constantine Salone, Sala di Costantino, after 1519. But Raphael in the Vatican means many, many other issues. It means the tapestry committed by Leo X for the Sistine Chapel, means the Vatican lodges, means the stove and the loggia of the apartment of Cardinal Bernardo Dovizzi, called Cardinal Bibbiena, around 1516, but means Raphael also at the court of Leo X, really involved in many, many other issues of the court, of the special court. Raphael as architect of the St. Peter's Fabrica, but also Raphael as curators of antiquities. So many, many different tasks undertaken under these two popes. Very, very quickly, just the Signatura, la stanza della Segnatura, la stanza dell'Eliodoro, incredible colored and beautiful time of the painting of this great master, the Incendio room, and the Constantine Saloon, the loggia of Cardinal Bibbiena, la stufetta del Cardinal Bibbiena, the loggia of Apostolic Palaces, the tapestries in the Sistine Chapel to complete this visual catechesis of the Cappella Magna di Palazzo. Raphael, one of the projectors of after the death of Bramante, of the new and magnificent new St. Peter's. But the Vatican collections have other works of art by Raphael that arrived in a different time. They were not commissioned by popes, and they came the St. Peter's and St. Paul, the two patrons of Rome, arrived in 1718. One was left unfinished by Fra Bartolomeo. The other one is mostly worked by Fra Bartolomeo, but arrived and were acquired in 1718. The Oddi altarpiece arrived in 1816 after a passage that we will see later. The Foligno Madonna also arrived in 1816, and the Great Transfiguration, the last work painted by Raphael before his sudden death on the 6th of April in 1520. And the Baglioni and Predella altarpiece also arrived in 1816. Here you are, this St. Peter's and St. Paul, the Oddi Pala, the Madonna di Foligno, the Transfigurations, and the Predella della Pala Baglioni. Of course, as director of the Vatican Museum, but the entire staff of our department devoted to the art of 15th and 16th century, a few years before, since my arrival as director of the Vatican Museum in 2017, we were thinking of this great year of celebration, a funest year, an incredible pandemic year that have changed our life, but we really wanted to have, and we had decided to celebrate it, celebrate this 500 years anniversary in a special way. I remember personally that I was early in my early years of university when 37 years ago Italy and the Vatican celebrate Raphael in a special way for the 500 years from his birth. And so we had many projects, exhibition and editorial projects, an international symposium devoted to Raphael in the Vatican. So to give in some ways all the what were the studies and the restorations and the projects undertaken in these 37 years, and other collaboration to external projects to Raphael. And the restorations of the Sanzio year. Of course, we perform a logo for the special year, and this is it that we use for all our projects. Our annual agenda diary of the Vatican Museum, of course, this year is devoted to Raphael and to the works of Raphael in the Vatican Museums. These were the exhibition projects. Some of them were already started when the pandemia and the lockdown arrived. The first three were already started. Some of them have been undertaken and have been open when we reopened after 3 months of closing. We were closed, the Vatican Museums were closed from the 9th of March to the 1st of June. And I must say that unfortunately, since last week, since the 6th November, we are again closed to the public. But let's think of what we have done related to Raphael. First, these are the different and external collaboration of other and different institutions to which we decided to collaborate as Vatican Museums. In the first line, you see the Scuderia del Quirinale exhibition, a major and vast and profound exhibition that the Scuderia del Quirinale, so Italy, the presidents of the Republic of Italy decided to organize in his exhibition space. And this was also one of the reasons why, in a different way from 1983, we have decided not to organize any major exhibition in the Vatican museums, but many different projects devoted to subject, because the vast exhibition, the vast retrospective devoted to Raphael was already organized there, and we were partner of this exhibition and of other many other exhibitions that you can see in this slide. The first exhibition we opened, it was an exhibition devoted to some plates, some dishes of Renaissance time that are Raphael's maiolicas at the court of the Pope, so we call it there, and we decided to have it in Castel Gandolfo, our second Vatican museums that are for the part of for museums and for exhibitions. Management is given to, since 4 or 5 years, is given to the Vatican museums, because Pope Francis decided not to use anymore the palaces of Castel Gandolfo, the gardens, as summer residence. And this is a very interesting exhibition devoted to these dishes that were restored thanks to our group of patrons of the arts in the Vatican museums in the last years. And so we thought it was a nice idea just to share it, because and to start our Raphael celebrations with this very particular collection that was not and never seen before to our public. But the real starting of our celebration was the recomposition of the Perugino Pala de Decembri. Perugino, as probably all of you know, was one of the masters of the youth of the great and the divine Raphael Sanzio. And we, in the Vatican collections, in the Vatican Painting Gallery, we have a very important altarpiece coming from Perugia, from the Palazzo dei Priori Perugia, that has a very funny story. We decided to have a joint project with the Galleria Nazionale dell'Umbria, with his director, and we brought in October the Pala de Decembri to Perugia, together with this beautiful frame, a master carver, Cecco di Bastone, of the 15th century, designed it specifically together to be together with the Perugino altarpiece, and also the Cimasa, the incredible Cimasa, was designed all together and painted by Perugino. These were separated during Napoleon time, and we decided to join it. Before in Perugia, and from the February the 6th, are in the Vatican museums, the exhibition, and it's still there. It was previewed May the 9th to be closed, and has only 20 days after the exhibition has to close. We decided to keep it during the summer, and even right now is still going in this specific place devoted to special exhibition that we decided to call museum at work, is a space, is an exhibition space only for few works of art, only maybe sometimes only one piece that is restored, or a special project like this one in the room number 18 of the painting gallery of the Vatican Museums. But probably the most impressive and the most incredible project that we were incredibly able to undertake during in February, where the tapestry, the hanging of the tapestry of the old school inside the Sistine Chapel. In 1515, Raphael was committed by Leo X to complete the visual catechesis of the Sistine Chapel, thanks to with the acts of the apostles Peter and Paul. The idea of the Pope was to really to complete this visual catechesis of the Cappella Magna, of this incredible place of faith. And he did it commissioning to Raphael the cartoons, the preparatory cartoons for of the history of Peter and Paul and other apostles, and that were sent to probably the most important workshop in Brussels, and where they arrived, and then they was in Brussels, that at that time was probably the most important workshop for tapestry in the world, and they arrived in December 1519 at the presence of the court in the Sistine Chapel, at the presence of the Pope and Raphael, and quoting the ceremony man of the court of Leo X, nobody have seen nothing so beautiful of the Sistine Chapel than the Sistine Chapel with the tapestry and with the entire vault depicted by Michelangelo, the Quattrocentisti, and the tapestry. So we thought to make the same. You have seen in some slides that this is the work in progress of what we have done, using the same inks that were conceived for the hanging of the tapestry, that were not permanently there during the 16th century, but they were there only for special celebrations and special occasions. We decided to have it only for 1 week, and we choose not December 2019, because December was a time, pre-COVID time of our visitor, very, very crowded. We didn't want to have this anthropic presence too much in such a delicate situation and project. So we choose February, and I can assure you that was amazing, because you really could see the tapestry after 10 years of restorations projects. Also the restoration of these tapestries were generously offered by our patrons of the arts in the Vatican Museum, and specifically many chapters from the different states of America helped us to restore this tapestry during the century. I can show you the incredible restoration, of course, undertaken in our restoration labs devoted to the tapestry and tissues that we have inside the Vatican Museums. And this incredible tapestry, the most sophisticated product of the European court of that time, and probably by the great master of the moment, were hung in the Sistine Chapel. This is a few sample of how it was. I have a few photos. I can assure you it was really an incredible moment, an incredible event. We didn't expect so much interest. Of course, we knew that there was an interest, but the response was amazing. Thousands of people arrived in this week, but we really decided to close only. To limit the project only for that week, and in some ways we were lucky because the next week was really starting the pandemic, and the lockdown arrived the week after, so 2 weeks after. So it was an amazing. This is not a wonderful photo, but gives you the idea with a new light and the incredible scenery of the Sistine Chapel, also with il verba leggenti, so the evangelization through the Acts of the Apostles. Of course, the incredible work undertaken for the restorations was arrived into a scientific and very profound book edited by Anna Maria De Strobel, by our Edizioni Musei Vaticani, that we were not able to present because we wanted to present a few weeks after the presentation of the tapestry in the Sistine Chapel, and this we were not able. And even afterwards, we really decided not to have a conference or presentations of books inside the Vatican Museum. So, as the entire world, we the protocols of not assembling people. So this is an incredible two volumes and substantial works on the 10 tapestries of the Sistine Chapel. Of course, we on the 6th of April, and in fact was previewed for the 20th of April, because the 6th of April was the beginning of the Lent. We decided not to of the Holy Week. We decided to postpone to 20th of April. Was previewed an incredible and important international symposium devoted to our studies, the different aspects of the studies of Raphael in this time of 37 years of between the celebrations of the death and the celebration of the birth of Raphael. And so what the Vatican Museums have done in terms of restoration, in terms of researchers, in terms of publications, and in terms of sharing ideas with different other museums and international universities. This was not able we were not able to do it, and so we have postponed the symposium. At the beginning we were postponing for October, and then in the summer we decided that it was not possible, so we have postponed it in 2021 for the moment, but we are still not sure that we will be able to have it. And so we are now thinking to maybe have a book or present some of the results of what we were in aim to do in a different form. Lockdown arrived. There was a 3 months of closing, 3 months in which for 2 months and a half nobody was visiting. Was not only visiting, but nobody was also going to the museums. I was going there every morning, but only with the secretary and few custodians, few guards. But it was a tough time. It was an hard time, but we worked a lot in smart working. And the happiest day of this year probably was the 1st of June, when we started again and we open again the door to our visitors. Our mission is to preserve, but is also to share our universal patrimony of arts, and of history, but also of faith. And so it was really an happy day. We reopened with new things because we had wanted to present our restoration project. This is a very, very important architectural project. The courtyard of the Bramante, the heart really of our museum is a crocevia, is a place in which all our visitors, millions of visitors before the pandemic, hopefully even in the future, but were passing, and it's a place of distribution of our visitors. As you can see, is a long-term project, also supported by our patrons of the arts in the Vatican museums, of the different chapter, with a great effort to re-give to this incredible place the color and the shape it had when it was conceived by Donato Bramante. At the same time, we just finished the pine cone of the restoration, a very important and symbolic in terms of abundance and positive meanings, and also the pine cone was restored, but also the incredible capitello that is put on the pine cone also was restored. But the restorations of the Sanzio here involved also one of the major altarpiece of our collections, arrived from thanks to Napoleon passing, conceived and committed by the Oddi family to Raphael, to a young Raphael, a Peruginesque young Raphael, then brought it from Perugia by the very sophisticated emissary and people of Napoleon, that brought it together with many other paintings to the Grand Musée Universel, or the Great Museum of the Louvre, the Imperial Museum of Napoleon. When after the defeat of Napoleon, they were not brought back to Perugia, but they were brought back thanks to Canova and thanks to Pius VII, to our collections. The other two paintings that have the same life, the Trasfigurazione da Madonna e Foligno, were already restored in the past decades. Pala Oddi was not restored, and thanks to the Michigan chapter of our patrons, was restored in the last year. And you can see the incredible and beautiful cleaning that re-give to this painting the incredible color by Raphael. Even the Virgin Mary that had this incredible blue of his mantello, we thought it was lost because we were not sure that all the previous restoration undertaken, but really we were very, very surprisingly happy finding the color of the blue and the blue of Raphael underneath repaint, probably of a Napoleon, a French time. But probably the most, we reopened on the 1st of June, giving not only an idea of Raffaello. We have a new light system in the stanza di Raffaello. We have a new air conditioning system, and we worked a lot on this project to have it and to be ready for 2020. And this is, but also we want to focus on what we have done in the last 30 and more years, 40 years on Raphael, and all the restoration projects undertaken. And I must say that even these restoration projects, all of them were undertaken thanks to our patrons of the arts that supported. So American people really have played an incredible role in our projects devoted to Raphael, specifically the New York chapter, but specifically for the Incendio and for Eliodoro, the D'Urso family, Florence D'Urso in particular, but also the Texas and the California chapter for the Incendio room, but even for Constantine, the New York and the Florida chapter, thanks to the Carson Fund. So you have here a list in this slide, a list of how much and how impressive was the work undertaken in the last years from our restorations lab on Raphael. I show you some of the slides. You're ready. Incredible, done with the timing. The Parnassus in 1910, and little by little, the incredible Eliodoro in 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, the Espulsion of Eliodoro, the Bolsena Mass, the Eliodoro. But we reopened with the great restoration project of the Constantine Hall, probably the most large, the most large room and of the Raphael stanze. That I feel very, very close to my directorship, because I arrived in the Vatican as director of the Vatican Museums when we were just starting with this room that is probably the most programmatic and politic room of the Raphael stanze. It was a room where specifically Leo X was making consistories, but also receiving delegations. And so the program of displaying, thanks to the projects of Raphael, but the will of Leo X, the programmatic iconographical program of displaying the different scenes of the life of Constantine the Great, the first and great emperor of Roman Empire that became Christian, is really a very, very programmatic and political room. But the incredible, well-known Battle of Constantine was cleaned in the last 4 years, and the results are amazing. The results are amazing. You can see here some samples before, during, and after the cleaning. Specifically, this is the head, the figure of Constantine, but also the allocutio or other of the baptism of Constantine, the incredible fresco of, in this case, not specifically of Raphael, but of his school of Giulio Romano, Giovan Francesco Pegni, that worked after the sudden and incredible death of Raphael in the 6th of April 1520. But really receive the knowledge of the master. Here you have some other example. What this great restoration opened, and this was a vehicle of reopening of the 1st of June, was that 2 figures that by biographers, but also by ancient documents, were thinking to be hand by the master, by Raphael itself, we as all the restoration really testify that two incredible figures are by the end of Raphael and used by and made by a specific and incredible technique of oil on wall. So two figures in the entire room are not frescoes, pure frescoes, but are painting in oil on wall. And this one of this is the Giustizia, and you can see an incredible brush of Raphael, and the real Raphael was a great oil painter, was a great master of cavalletti. Cavalletto was a great master of incredible and defined Madonna. He was really a man that could testify the beautiness of the human figure, specifically the feminine figures. And here you have an example of that. Analysis and restorations testify that this work and this Giustizia and the Comitas that is in the other wall, in the wall of the Vision of the Cross, of the Allocuzio, the Comitas and the Giustizia is by hand of Raphael. Here you have two figures, but of that we will speak later on. We wanted to present this novità and this incredible scoperta, discovery on the last Raphael in the stanze, in a room that was always considered to be a room of pupils, to be a room of Giulio Romano and Pegni and others of his incredible workshop. But these two figures are by the end of Raphael. Another, we reopen also presenting the room number 8 of the painting gallery is devoted to Raphael and is devoted to the tapestry and to the 3 major paintings. This is a display in the paintings had in 1930s when Luca Beltrami conceived the entire building and also put new frames to the 3 paintings and designed the entire room, the major and largest room of our painting gallery devoted to Raphael. After a few years, the frames designed by Beltrami were considered too heavy, too new Renaissance style, and so they were taken off. And this is how they looked like when a few years ago I arrived to the museums and we were thinking of what to do for the celebrations, and there were no difference of light. You see even the tapestry, there were no a good light illuminating them, and also the frames by Beltrami were taken off. Going around, we went to several deposits, and one day I saw a big box, a little dusty big box in a deposit in Santa Maria di Galeria, and with a written inscription on it saying Cornici di Raffaello. But finally we found some frames that were probably the frames devoted to arrived that were put on these paintings in by the time the paintings were in France, and they were taken off when Beltrami conceived it. And so we decided together with the new illumination to restore the frames that are golden leaf frames, dating the time, dating probably early end of 17th century, 18th century, early 19th century, and we displayed the new illumination and the new frames. And this is the shape the room number 8 looks like now, after the displaying of the tapestry in the Sistine Chapel. We re-put the tapestry in the place in the room where they were displayed, and together with the new illumination and with the new frames. This is it. And this is a group before the opening, where we were just working on the new illumination and the put and the set of the frame, the restored frame, and the restored also Palaodi. Another project that we are still in aim to do it is thanks to Pope Francis. These two incredible patrons of Rome, Peter and Paul, that were part of a commission to Fra Bartolomeo of the Church of San Silvestro al Quirinale, and Fra Bartolomeo left Rome, leaving unfinished the St. Peter's that you see on your left, and Raphael finished the St. Peter's that we know by biographers and documents. But these two paintings were not very much seen, because they were acquired from the Church of San Silvestro al Quirinale in 1711, and then they were part of the Vatican collections. But they were part of the apartment of Pope Francis and the previous popes in the last at least century, and so they were seen to a more wide public only for the major exhibition devoted to Raphael in Vatican in 1983 for the exhibition organizing the celebration of the 500 years from the birth. We decided to restore them and ask the Holy Father Pope Francis to share and to not to have them for a certain time. We started to restore them just to share them and to expose them in October, this October, last month, but we were not able to restore them well for the pandemic, because we had the lockdown, and so we decided to postpone the exhibition. Because right now, even yesterday, I was in the restoration lab, and they're still working on that. And I must say that even this project is a project supported by our patrons of the arts in the Vatican Museum. Specifically, is the D'Urso family, not only Donna but also her brother and sister, that really are Mark and Lisa D'Urso, together with Donna, are wonderfully generously to allowed us to restore even in this incredible and pandemic time. We are keep going, because we really want to expose them. We don't know yet when, but probably they will be finishing for next March, and so by March it would be possible we will expose them in the room number 18 of our painting gallery. I will conclude my speech on Raphael. I don't know how is my time. Probably I'm telling you a little diagram of how were our visitors during the time from June to October, the time we were opening this funest and pandemic year of 2020. From June to October, the range was, of course, much less, 80% less than the previous years, but specifically thanks to these Raphaelesque projects that we, and probably also for all the pâtage that we made of the Constantine room of the new illumination and the new frames of Raphael, we had peaks of 140,000 visitors in August, and little by little they arrived to 83,000 visitors last month of October. We must thinking in an optimistic way, so we are thinking even right now every day what to do, we will not in a different way from the last pandemic, from the last lockdown. We will not be all at work at home. Restaurants are still working, and most of 80% of the staff is coming to work, because we want to keep going the restoration projects. We want to keep going this is another slide. Unfortunately, we totally in an opposite way from previous years. We had almost 60% of our visitors were Italian, and only 31% were foreigners. Probably most of them were European visitors. What we noted that the increase of our website was amazing. You can see from the diagram. It was incredibly exponentially increased during the lockdown, and even the Instagram, the social networks project. So what we really decided to do is to in this time work on the restoration project, but also work very much on the web, increase the catalog online of our collections, increase the virtual tour, increase all the way we can reach our visitors, because I remember to you that our mission is not only to preserve, but is also to share this incredible and immense and universal patrimony of art, of history, but also faith. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jatta, for this fascinating lecture that told us how much the Vatican museums have done to celebrate Raphael. I just want quickly to recapitulate some of the things and initiatives you mentioned, so that people can gather their thoughts to ask some further questions. We already have quite a few, so I'm going to be very brief. But I was particularly struck by how transparent you've been about the labor that is required to preserve some of these artworks. The Raphael stanze, are finally coming to a completion. So the restoration project has lasted 40 years. It's an incredible undertaking, but also you restored many more works like the De Gemperi altarpiece by Perugino, the altarpiece, and then the incredible Bramante courtyards that was designed to kind of bring together and unify all these kind of different buildings that were created and now are part of the Vatican Palace. Now, I just have a couple of questions from the public that are asking you. First of all, if the Constantine Hall is going to be open by next year, or whether the restoration is going to take longer.
We finished the three walls, the Allocuzio, the Battle, and the Baptism. We are working right now on the la donazione di Costantino on the fourth parete, or the fourth wall. We were not thinking to start in this 2020 because we want to have the entire room, the three walls and the ceiling clear and without the scaffolding. We decided, because of the pandemic, because of the less public, to do it right now. So hopefully by January or February we will be finished, and so it will be all restored. And there are, even in the fourth wall incredible new issues that we were not expecting.
Yeah, I mean, one of the amazing things about the restoration of the Constantine Hall is the discovery of these oil paintings by Raphael. And there's a couple of questions about this. And
Okay.
people are asking, how's it possible that he tried to experiment with oil on a fresco? People are recalling Leonardo's famous failed Last Supper experiment, where oil and egg yolk together kind of like didn't bind, and therefore that led to the flaking off the paintings. So now we have a ghost of a fresco. How is it possible that Raphael managed to paint with oil on fresco? Did he paint on paint? Did he paint on the wall? Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Allora, of course, yes, he was a great artist. He was a great man in many sense. He was a great draftman, but he also was a great genius. He was a great experimenter man. He really wanted to take on wall the finest and the incredible delicatezza of his oil paintings, and so he experimented the oil on painting with a specific technique and probably these two figures are the proofs that he made, because by that time when he started to work on that, we are speaking about 1519, it was so much taken by many other issues that we know from his design, that is designed the entire concept of the walls of the conception, iconographical projects of the wall, but probably there were the only two figures that were painted by him. It's specifically with a specific technique which has a specific preparation, and this was attested by all the analysis we have made during not only the analysis that testify that he's painted in oil on wall, but also the preparation is a different preparation from the fresco, with many chiodi, nails, and with a specific preparation of a colofonia, a specific wax, and it's a wax. So it's a specific technique that need to be done. We know by biographers, we know by Vasari and others that and by the documents that when he died and he suddenly left his pupils and his workshop astonished, and the pupils tried to keep going with the two proofs that the master have made in the two different figures, and we know that exactly like the Leonardo in Palazzo Vecchio in Florence, they were not able to be, because they had to use with this colofonia some heat to undertake the proceed, and la parete ha colato, it fell down exactly like for the Leonardo, and so it was really an unsuccess. And we know by documents that all the different fronda, the different partito of Sebastiano del Piombo and others went to Leo X saying, why are you giving the work to this Garzoni of Raphael, that they have nothing to do with the master? They don't know. They are Garzoni. They are not masters. Give it to me, the work. I will finish the project left unfinished from Raphael, because I'm a good painter and I know how to paint, said Sebastiano del Piombo. Leo X decided to left it to Giulio Romano and to Penny, that decided to left the idea of using the oil on wool decided by Raphael, and so they have a wonderful and unique fresco, a wonderful fresco. I show you some images, but for example, this the Constantine battles is a wonderful fresco, but it's because they decided. And what we have understood from the restoration, that the figures of the Comitas and the Justitia are below the frescoes. So they were painted before le giornate of working. They are below the frescoes. So they were painted, and probably they decided to leave them. The Comitas is a little un po' colata nella parte bassa, so probably for many reasons even that. But the master, for example, La Justitia is an incredible, you can see from here, is an incredible painting, not only for the composition, but also for the technique he used to paint it.
Yes, I think we can see very well the shading, for instance, and how the colors are perfectly blended, which is something that usually fresco doesn't do just as well, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you so much also for showing us these photographs, but also for reminding us that these Renaissance masters were not just like masters in composition, but also that to think carefully about the technique they were employing, because the technique served particular purposes like communicative, artistic, and so on. Okay, we have a few questions also about the questions of restoration. Some people are asking how you could find the blue pigment in the Oddi altarpiece. Was the color simply oxidified, or was like there was a layer underneath the varnish?
I think the Oddi.
And then in general, people are asking, how often do you need to restore artworks, you know?
I take them, the Oddi, and I answer.
Yeah. People are also asking about the kind of like the priorities you may have while restoring, the complications that have emerged. They're asking for behind the scene, like.
I must tell you that I must tell everybody that I'm a lucky director, because the incredible knowledge of our restorers and our staff in terms of restoration is amazing. But what bears me to be a happy director is also what is past. We have an incredible archive of the restoration projects undertaken before. So because before starting a restoration project, we go to our archive and to know what were the previous restoration projects undertaken on that specific work of art. And for the Oddi altarpiece, we were lucky because we had also some of the French documents. We know that in France, from Perugia taken to France, it was took off from the panel, wooden panel they were on, and it was transferred by the French restorers on canvas. So c'è stato uno strappo proprio of the painting.
It's been detached. Yeah.
Yes, it was detached, and it was restored in the Vatican collection in the 1950s, and we have all the restorations report of that other of that time. What even at that time was not clear and was not clean was the Virgin mantle, and that at that time they decided not to clean, because they were afraid that, because they didn't have all the kind of analysis and kind of indagini.
Examinations, yeah.
Yes, examination that nowadays we can have, and so they were scared in the 1950s to clean the Virgin because they were thinking to lose even everything. And so, but as from the analysis, we understood that we had some results underneath. We decided to keep going and exactly what we have done. And so this is the results, the final results. But with this, you can see exactly little by little how it was, and it was really a great surprise, and it's an amazing result.
This is wonderful, in fact. And again, restoration is not just a matter of technique and technologies, but also a matter of research and understand and calibrating decisions over time. So this is great. Now, some of the questions are more kind of historical. People are asking who may have guided Raphael when he designed the content of the rooms, and another one asked which ones were the pupils that Raphael employed to paint them. You mentioned Penny, Giulio Romano. We can mention Perrin del Vaga and many others. So maybe we don't. This story is well known, but maybe you can point us to publications or a source so that people can find out more about the history of the Vatican stanze. Unless you want to answer, of course.
Recently, we have published 2 books on the stanze. One is the result of a symposium devoted to the stanze made, I think I have the book behind me. Wait. This is it. Raphaello a Roma Restauro e Ricerche, published by Edizioni Musei Vaticani, and is the result of some not the last Constantine, which is not published yet, but the other part of the other room where is in this book. Another book published by Frommel is published by Jatta book, Professor Frommel, but a few others. For example, my predecessor Paolucci published a book on Raphael in a more general monography volume on Raphael, where of course he pointed out on the stanze. There are some other issues, for example, this is also by Paolucci, is on the stanze also, is always Edizioni Musei Vaticani, but there are many other books issued and coming out this celebration here. But what I can tell you is just if you want to improve, go on our website. We have a virtual tour of the stanze. You can go around going in our each room, and with a very sophisticated and very high quality images of our virtual tour that you can manage yourself, and this is a way to know it. But of course, I invite everybody to come whenever we will open again, because it's very sad just to be only in the digital way.
Yeah, I just wrote down in the chat the names of Sabine Frommel and Antonio Paolucci.
No, it's Luitpold Frommel. It's not Sabine, but it's
Luitpold Frommel.
The volume right here.
Right. Okay. Thanks for the corrections. Anyway. Oh, perfect. I'll write down in a second. Anyway, you find the names there, so you can find maybe these publications. Someone is also asking whether Raphael was impacted by Lutherans' reform in designing the stanze. That is, again, a decade-long project. It's a very complicated, ambitious frescoes with tons of nuances. So I think we can just point them to the publications where you'll find a greater deal of informations, and we cannot answer these important questions in 30 seconds.
It's very long to answer, but of course it was.
Just because you mentioned digitization, quite a few people are asking about the Vatican Museum's plan to digitize their collections, what they can see right now online since they cannot visit the Vatican, but also what are your plans for the future? You know, are we expecting to see more and more works being digitized available online?
Of course, we are expecting and we are working strongly on our digital issues because it's something that curators, assistants, and even restorers can work easily to share. We have an incredible new system of our cataloging online, in which we can even have all the it's a portal more than a website, a simple site where many information are there. Another of the issues was to organize an exhibition that we will not probably be able to do on our photographic department. We are scanning and digitizing all our ancient photographs. It's more than 150,000 images devoted to our collections, not only the paintings or the objects or the different departments, but also the palaces. And these ancient photographs have been digitized, and we will put them on our web together with the catalog online, but also related to the works. So, for example, I've shown you the image of this one of the Pinacoteca, the painting gallery in 1930s, and we have also other images of the painting of the Pinacoteca before and where these pictures were before. So it's very, very helpful for researchers. So, and we wanted to present this in an exhibition in the room number 18 of our Pinacoteca, but also to present on a day devoted to the Raphaelesque photographs of our collections. We will see whether we will do only on the web. Right now, we are still working in acquisition of the digitized images.
Thanks. Now, and one question is also about the social media. Like people are asking, you know, whether, you know, how they can access the collections through them rather than just the website. I don't know if you got any special plan about them.
I show the picture. The last slide was of Instagram. We had an amazing increase on Instagram in the last specifically. No, this is only the last week, but in the last year. Specifically since the lockdown, we had an enormous increase on Instagram and on our YouTube channel, because we worked a lot on that. Of course, we have worked a lot on our website, but specifically on our social networks. And social networks brought us an incredible increase of the presence of young people to our collections of these incredible numbers, and of these 60% of Italian that have visited us between June and October. 40% are young people between 15 and 27 years. So this was a great success, because is a way of I don't know how to say that in English, but in some way make closer the young generations, and I think it's a very, very important issue that we have to do, and more, and each week we have a face-to-face with one of our, on Instagram. It's only 3 minutes one of our curators is explaining and is telling to our Instagram followers one work of the collection, and even we have for before the closing for our visitors. Each week we the most nice picture posted on the Vatican Museum received a prize, and so many things like that that really increased in a exponential way the presence of young generations.
I just share the handle of the Vatican Museum's Instagram, so people can follow curators, look at artworks. So that's great. Thank you. Now, the questions keep rolling in, but I'm pressed by time. So I would like maybe to conclude with 3 questions that I can summarize in one, which are about the legacy of the Vatican Museums and the meaning, even religious meanings that these sites have. So I'm just going to read them, right? One person asked, King Araya asked that since it seems the beauty can be fully understood and felt only when experienced through suffering, do you think, Dr. Barbara Jatta, that this particular year of Raphael's celebration, so wounded by the COVID pandemic, adds to a great appreciation of the artist's art? And if so, how? And I would just like to tie this with another question by Maria Yolanda Trejani, who asked, what is the message you would like us to convey about the Vatican Museums and Raphael's legacy? And this is also tied to what Maria Goretti asks, which is about what are the messages of faith the Raphael's exhibitions are trying to convey. Can you please explain more on the curatorial strategy?
No doubt that an impressive and incredible figure like Raphael, over national figure as an artist, a universal artist like Raphael, that really in some ways was a key figure for harmony, for taste, and as I mentioned at the beginning, of creative inspiration for generation of not only normal people but also of artists, of artists in a wide range, but also an artist that arrives to our heart in the profound, because the external beauty is a strong internal beauty that he takes with his form and his. I like to quote Antonio Paolucci, that he said that Raffaello aveva I segreti che sapeva governare le forme, ma anche sapeva rendere la bellezza che le intenerisce. E quindi I say that in Italian, but really he was a master not only in forms but also in the secret of the beauty, the profound beauty that of course is also in many of his expressions is a beauty of a strong spiritual soul. So no doubt that during the pandemic time, a figure like Raphael, that's why they came so many to visit us with this reopening the museums in the name of Raphael, it can be a key of it. I can tell you that during the lockdown, I published on the Osservatore Romano an article on the Madonna Sistina, which is not in our collections, but is a really a figure that was seen so much during his lifetime, when he was in Dresden, when he was in Dresden by Dostoevsky, and Dostoevsky is the great great pensatore that took us the famous sentences, "Beauty will save us," and I'm sure that beauty La Via Pulchritudinis, of which Pope Francis is telling us will help us, and specifically is helping us in bad time. And Raphael, as for all what I said in a terrible English and with not my native language, so I was not probably able to express in a right way, can help us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jatta, for sharing all these amazing projects that the Vatican Museums have organized, and also for being with us tonight for you and this morning for us. I'm just gonna give the word to Anna Maria, the director of the IIC Center in San Francisco, for the conclusive remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Emanuele. Thank you once again, really, from the bottom of my heart, to Professor Jatta for the honor of being with us today. Thank you, Professor Lugli, once again for your amazing moderation. Thanks to our Consul General Lorenzo Ortona. Thanks especially to my colleagues in North America, Director of the IIC in North America, and thanks to the 400 people who connected with us today, showing incredible interest. Next week, it will be the week of the Italian cuisine in the world, so please follow us to discover our next event. And I hope this webinar has offered you a short pause from worries and anxiety in these hard times we are living in. So please stay safe, enjoy the rest of the day, and thank you for your attention. Bye.